Welcome to the second section of our course on program evaluation. This section covers one method of program evaluation called randomized controlled trials. As we have seen in the previous section, in order to properly estimate the effect of a development program, we need some sort of comparison group made up of non-clients. We would ideally want to see what would have happened to the program participants in the absence of the program, as well as what would have happened if the program were implemented. Since this is a logical impossibility, we need to explore practical alternatives. One possibility is to simply compare outcomes for clients both before and after the program. Although this may seem tempting, the results can be very misleading. Many other completely unrelated factors could have influenced the outcome during the time the program took place. Some of the changes in outcomes would have happened regardless of the program. This type of analysis does not tell us anything reliable about the effects of a project. A better possibility is to find a group of people living in the same area who do not participate in the program and compare them to people who do participate. Although this is a much better approach, it is important to note that there will likely be a particular reason for selecting the people to participate. The people who do not participate may therefore differ substantially, and a comparison may again lead to unreliable results. Again, the ideal solution would be to find the same people who participated in the program in a parallel universe in which they did not participate to see what would have happened. Of course, this is not possible, but we'll discuss how you can get as close as possible in the real world. You're probably familiar with the method used for testing new drugs. Doctors randomly select patients into a treatment and control group. The first group receives the new drug, while the second receives a placebo. After some period, they look at how many patients recovered from the disease, and the difference in outcomes between those in the treatment and control groups can be attributed to the drug itself. Why is this so? Although there might have been some differences across individuals within these groups, on average, the two groups should be the same. Their average income should be the same, their average nutritional intake, average education, and average willingness to take the pills daily should be the same or very similar. The more people in each group, the more similar the groups are on average. We can do the same thing with development programs. We can take a group of people who are eligible for a program, and we can choose who takes part in the program based on pure luck, let's say by using a lottery. One half of the people end up participating in the program, and the other half does not. These are our treatment and control groups, respectively. Again, these two groups should be the same on average, and as the size of the sample grows, the difference between the two groups should get smaller. If we compare outcomes after the program has been implemented, any differences between the groups at the end of the program in, say, individual income, should be attributable to the program. Since the two groups are identical in expectation, changes in economic and environmental conditions should affect both groups equally. For example, a drought or sudden increase in wages caused by an economic boom in the country, etc. This figure should clearly demonstrate the logic. We want to create a control group which is on average as similar to the treatment group as possible. As such, any difference between the groups after our program is finished and evaluated is attributable to the program itself. certain programs have a direct effect on the targeted beneficiaries only. In other words, they have no spillover effects. You can see the discussion of spillover effects in the previous section. In such cases, it is fine to randomize at the individual level. In other words, randomly select which potential individual participants receive services by lottery. But some programs do have spillover effects, and this may have an effect on the broader population. For example, we discussed how farmer field schools might have an effect on entire communities, not just those who are direct participants. Once you expect spillover effects to be present, you should randomize on the level at which there are spillovers, like schools or communities. Randomization at the community level, however, requires many more observations if you want to achieve the desired goal of having equally balanced populations in both the control and treated groups. It is possible that when you look at baseline data collected just before the program has started, you might find that the treatment and control groups differ in some characteristics, such as age or income, just by pure chance. As long as the differences are not very large, and this is, of course, a subjective measure, you do not have to worry. You just need to take these initial differences into account when you do the final analysis. We will talk about the analysis elsewhere, but the main lesson is to collect the data even before the project actually begins, so that it's possible to account for these pre-existing differences between the control and treatment groups. The idea of randomly selecting individuals into groups in which one receives everything and the other nothing may make some people uncomfortable. And many potential donors and stakeholders are still opposed to randomization. However, it is important to point out that there are drawbacks to other selection criteria as well. For example, budget limitations usually prevent everyone who could benefit from a poverty intervention program from participating, and expanding enrollment might spread resources too thinly to make much of an impact for anyone. One option is to let the community decide. As such, local politics may lead to an outcome in which benefits only accrue to the friends of a local strongman. Alternatively, you might want to use some index of neediness. Although this might seem to be the most impartial strategy, there is still much scope for bias in estimating the characteristics of the most needy. The best justification for performing a randomized control trial, however, is that it is the most reliable way of conducting an impact evaluation. Determining which approaches are the most effective allows future funds to be spent in the most efficient manner. Even if randomizing who gets access to services now means that some deserving individuals will be left out, in the long run, having more effective programs means that money allocated for poverty alleviation will ultimately make a bigger difference in more people's lives.